On this little podcast, I talk to you about stuff. I kind of do a little show and tell with some of the things that I've been thinking about and learning about. And then at the end, we have somebody come on or somebody send in a question and we have some fun with tarot or oracle cards. So, welcome, welcome. If this is your first time, hello. And the thing is, if somebody else pulls a tarot card, like if somebody else pulls tarot and you didn't ask the question, that doesn't mean that you can't see the value. Like there can still be value when somebody else pulls something because it's an opportunity to have insights that you didn't or wouldn't have otherwise had. So I love it. And I'm so glad that I left behind some old beliefs that I had that were given to me by someone else that these kinds of things, tarot and oracle cards, were somehow bad and that I needed to be afraid of them or to protect myself from them. And I'm really glad that I've gotten rid of that belief. In fact, one of the things actually that I was talking about with Brooke, who is my own personal tarot card reader, who I love. She's also my a little life coach that I have as well. Not little. And what I love is something she said yesterday was really interesting. So she's been doing a 2-card pull lately instead of the 3 cards because 3 can take a lot of time, especially if you're having a lot of insights or lots of things are coming up as something to discuss. But what I loved is this new 2-card pull that she's been doing. One is a card to invite you to leave something behind. Like, what are you leaving behind? And then the next card is what are you adding or what are you moving towards? I had a little cranberry smoothie this morning, and I think I'm sort of choking on a cranberry seed. So, for my tea this morning, I have mixed an English breakfast tea, like just a plain black tea, along with Bengal spice, which is a celestial seasonings blend, and then I did some like just regular milk as well and creatine powder. And it's like a little masala chai that's quick and easy and I love it and it feels like fall. Okay. Let's talk about let's talk about that idea of leaving things behind. Like, what are you carrying around in your backpack that is a belief that came to you from someone else that's not necessarily yours? And I imagine you have a lot. I know I have a lot. And how many of those are just beliefs that are passed down from one generation to the next generation to the next generation? And not only that, sometimes they might not be yours. Like if we're talking about internal family systems, so that's something I talked about quite a bit yesterday. Internal family systems is basically well, you know what? I'm going to talk about internal family systems and then I'm going to talk about leaving beliefs that aren't yours, leaving them behind. So, internal family systems is a therapy that was devised and kind of formulated by Dr. Schwartz. His name is Dr. Richard Schwartz. He goes by Dick sometimes. And so in the early 80s, if I get his story right, he said that in the early 80s, he was a marriage and family therapist and he was trying to prove, like, they were doing a study and they wanted to prove that It's so easy. All you have to do is if you have somebody who has, some kind of um, social slash mental behavioral issue, um, some kind of problem that they're exhibiting in their life, all you have to do is make sure that the family around them supports them in the right way, and then they'll get better. And so he set out to prove this. And he realized that he was not proving it, he was disproving his theory. And what he discovered was a lot of the people, like for example, there might have been a young woman who had like bulimia or something, and she would express something to the extent of, well, there's this part of me that doesn't want to eat or doesn't want to binge. And then there's this part of and so I do all the right things and I don't binge and I don't binge. And then eventually there's this other part of me that can't take it anymore, and then I binge, and then there's another part of me that feels guilty for it, and there's another part of me that, on and on. You get the idea. And so other people were expressing other ideas about parts. Like he was saying, people were thinking, "Well, there's this one part of me that wants this, but there's another part of me that wants that." And like in in some of the retellings of this story, you know, Dick Schwartz is like, and I started to think, man, these people have got a lot more issues than I thought. Like they've got whole groups of people inside their head. And then he thought, well, wait a second. I kind of describe things the same way. And then he started asking colleagues, and people around him, do you describe things like this in the same way, where there's a part of you that wants this and a part of that you that wants that? And I think it's pretty obvious. I think we can all acknowledge that we all do that. And so he started to research this and dig into it and find out, like, interview lots of people and find out what kinds of voices there are in there. And he said that it was very interesting because they were he had this idea that a lot of families are structured around, like, they have, so a lot of families will have kind of roles that different people will play. Like, I don't actually know which ones he's talking about, but I know there's one therapist out there that says, if you have kids, they will all take a role, such as, like, one will be the rebel, one will be the caretaker, one will be the sick one, and the other one will be the achiever. And that's not, I mean, that's her thing that she says, but there's other ones in a family. So, like, just different roles that people will step into the role, often because no one else is doing it, and they feel like they need to step up in some way to make the family work, especially if things are, a little chaotic. And so because as Dr. Schwartz was going down this rabbit hole and finding out about finding out about the voices in people's heads, he realized that a lot of them were doing that thing that happens in families. Like, they will take a role, like a role such as, one will be, like, one will be a manager, one will be a cheerleader, or one will be, um, I don't know, just all different roles. They'll take different roles to basically help this human function. And it's really fascinating because it's as if the parts are always there, have always been there. But when different experiences happen in our lives, one of those little parts of us will step forward to take a certain role in order to protect us or to help us in some way. And, we can be, I'm almost 50. And so for 49 years, I've had all these parts in me. And then, but this year it's been really interesting as I've been doing some of this internal family systems work with myself, is I realize, there could be a part there that has been working hard at something since I was like 5 or 6 years old because something happened when I was 5 or 6 where that part had to step forward and do something to help me be safe or to help me to be not made fun of, which also means, trying to keep me safe. And so we have these little parts, but those parts will it's really interesting because when you do the work, you'll talk to these parts either with the help of a therapist or there's a way that you can do a meditation. In fact, there's a book called Greater Than the Sum of Our Parts, which is on Audible. I don't know if it's on Libro FM, but it's an audiobook and he walks you through what things are and then he walks you through different meditations that you can do to connect with these parts. And I've been doing that this year and have found it very, very powerful and helpful. And then I found a therapist to help me with some of like um uh the more sensitive parts. In fact, let me see if I can find ooh, I don't know where it went. I have a little journal. I'll show you that sometime where I write down all the names of the parts. Some like my parts will come forward and actually tell me a name and tell me who they are and they kind of show me different scenarios and I get a sense of them. So it's a really good I think it's a very powerful therapy, especially if you have a decent imagination. I'm not particularly visual, but when I've tapped into these parts, it's become more visual and I can get a sense of things, like a sense of a scene. I'm not necessarily seeing it with colors, but it's like I know it's there, if that's if that makes any sense. So, when you do these interviews with these parts, one of the things that you ask them is, "How old do you think I am?" And they will usually say like 7 or 5 or 4. Sometimes they'll go a little older. And it's what's amazing is that if you let go and just kind of trust the process, you'll find that those answers do come pretty easily. And you're like, "Oh my gosh, how is this thing talking inside me?" Anyway, so I love that, and it's really helped me connect to who I am and help me understand more of who I am in my life, and it's helped me, I think, move past things, and certainly it's helped me to be more clear on things and anyway, it's been fascinating and a wonderful journey, and I would highly recommend it to people who are looking for something for a way to connect and understand why they do the things that they do. Back to the idea of what we're leaving behind. And when we pick up, we'll often pick up beliefs on our trail, beliefs that someone else has imposed on us. And sometimes it'll be those parts in us that are holding on to a belief that was just a belief that we formed when we were 5 or 4 years old. And other times we'll have a belief that we got from a parent who got it from a parent who got it from a parent. So, and we perpetuate these beliefs in our lives. And so the question is, which ones do we want to leave behind and which ones do we want to keep? And for me, I've certainly found beliefs that are just they're more punishing beliefs. Like I would say that a lot of the beliefs that I carry around that are detrimental to me and my ability to move forward are the ones that are saying that either, I'm not enough. Some of these kind of prisons that we put ourselves in, to use Peter Crone's idea of these primal prisons. So the beliefs that I'm not enough or it's not safe to be myself, that's a big one. I mean, how much that's a good question. Like how safe is it to be yourself? And a lot of times we don't think it's safe to be ourselves. I certainly got the message from different people in my life that it wasn't safe to be myself. And one of the people was my brother, who, when I like, these are things that I've learned from connecting to these parts and also from just examining my own life. And I have a pretty good memory of things that happened from when I was young, but my brother was bullied a lot for and he would see me behaving weird or silly or loud or I don't know. He would see me doing things and he would be like, "Don't do that. Don't do that. That's not, he was just trying to protect me. Like, don't do that or cuz he was thinking somebody will beat you up or somebody will treat you badly or be mean to you. And he was just trying to help me so that he could spare me from some pain that he had felt. And it's interesting because some of my parts that I've connected to, a lot of them will look a lot like my brother from when he was from when we were little. And he'll be, just trying to manage me in some way so that I will be safe. And anyway, it's been a fascinating journey, but those kinds of things, the reason we're able to let them go now and what you can help your parts understand in the internal family systems work is what you do is you sit with those parts and you help them, you show them compassion, and then you help them release these ideas or release the job that they feel like they have to do. You basically, and you give them another job. You basically say, if you could do any other job rather than just managing me to make sure I don't make an ass of myself, what would you rather be doing? And sometimes they're like, I want to work in a candy store or, like cute little things that these little people inside you want to do. And so you guide them and then you kind of help them see, like, hey, we don't have to worry about that anymore. I'm actually not 4 years old anymore. I'm actually 49. My parts are usually like, "Why don't you live in a nicer house?" Like, what, you know? Or like they'll wonder like, "Why haven't you done more with your life?" And that's probably another part saying those things. But when when you're able to sit down and be like, "Look, I'm 49. I've got this. I can make choices and I don't care." Like, and sometimes you'll go into the scene. They'll show you a scene of why they started stepping up to protect you. And then you'll go into that scene together and you say, is there something, what could I say to make this scene better? And what could I help? What could I help you do so that you could feel better about what happened here? And anyway, it's really healing and it's really poignant. And I don't know, I think I have a suspicion that it's a really great therapy for writers, anyone who imagines scenes like this anyway. eh, Like, anyway, writers who write fiction, and I can't say enough good things about it. So, those beliefs that we get from those formative experiences in our life, we pick them up from those parts, we pick them up from everybody. It's a chance, like, I mean, we always have the opportunity to reflect on these things that we've been carrying with us. That channeler guy, Bashar, he talks about how if something feels heavy, it's usually because we're carrying out around a belief that's not ours. So, what can you do to it's about looking at the beliefs that you have and wondering like, do I really need this and can I let it go? And I think that's what we're gonna ask the tarot. Also, um, well, let's see. The belief, what can I leave behind and what can I move towards? Actually, let's talk about that, but we might do a normal pull. I actually did get some questions that came through. And let me just look at those and see what she asked. Okay. So this one, I don't think we're going to do a two card pull because we have plenty of time, but I like this question, and it relates to what we were saying. It's what part of my story is ready to be rewritten or reclaimed? And I think that is a great tie-in to what we were just talking about. I'm going to move my tea out of the way so that I don't spill it. We're going to use the Winter Tarot today, the Seasons of the Witch Winter Tarot, because I love it. And yeah, what part of my story is ready to be rewritten or reclaimed? Ooh, I just love these. These make me very, very happy. Oh, I got to have my microphone over here. Let me go like that. Okay. What part of my story is ready to be rewritten or reclaimed? So, I have a lot of writers in my life. So it's a great question for a writer, but it doesn't have to be a writer. I'm going to get quiet and kind of think and reflect on this idea while I shuffle. Okay. Cut the deck. And now I hold it like this, and then I just feel where it feels right to cut the deck. And I feel like it should be right there. So again, what part of my story is ready to be rewritten or reclaimed? For present moment, we have 10 of Winter Wands. For roots, we have 8 of Winter Pentacles. And for next steps, we have 3 of Winter Swords. Okay. We've gotten all minor arcana cards in that pull. So the minor arcana are the ones that are the suits, the wands suit, the wands, cups, pentacles, and swords are the 4 suits. And they start to blend in, so it goes from the major arcana. Those are the ones that start with the Fool and end with the World, right? Like I said, I'm not an expert. I'm just practicing. And the only way you get good at things is by practicing. So, let me see. Yeah, it ends with the World. I'm right. Okay. Phew. Now, these are all cards that I don't pull very often. However, I do pull 10 of Wands quite a bit. And what I love about this is when in 10 of Wands, it's an invitation to let go of burdens that you're carrying. And what were we just talking about? We were just talking about letting go of the heavy beliefs that we carry around with us that are not ours. That's why they're heavy. So we can choose to put them down. And back to that question, what part of my story is ready to be rewritten or reclaimed? And I don't know about you, but based on what we're talking about today, I imagine that the parts of our story that need to be or want to be reclaimed are probably the beliefs that we're holding on to that are no longer serving us. So, what are those in your life? And let's hope that maybe we get a little bit of clarity within this. Now, this card pull is for anyone who happens upon this video. So, this is for you. If you're watching, it's for you. Let's take a look in that picture. We have a woman with a basket on her back, and she's carrying a bunch of sticks. And it's very similar to a typical wands, 10 of wands card because oh, why is it doing that? Let's see. Oh, because it can see my face. So I have to hide my face a little bit. So when we see all these sticks, it's like this burden that she's carrying. And a lot of times, we also like so a lot of times a wands card or a wand suit will lean into candles or light because it's like magic and fire. And so we have both here. We have something the sticks that look a lot like the typical wands in the typical suit, and then we have these beautiful candles that go up to the house. And it's interesting because I think Brooke has pulled this card for me, and we haven't used this tarot deck very often with her. So, as she's okay, so there's that. Then 8 of Winter Pentacles. Let's take a look at that. That's the roots. So I'm going to read about that. First, I want to talk about, I will read the 10 of Winter Wands and just see what normally comes of that. Oh, in fact, oh, silly me. I have a guidebook. I don't have to use that one. So 10 of Winter Wands. By the way, this is beautiful, guys. If you're into it, I highly suggest getting a copy of this for yourself. Here we find a tired maiden out in the snow, leaning up against a large tree for rest, her basket full of supplies she's had to forage for. We can see her heavy exhale on the wind, showing just how out of breath she is. Beyond her can be seen a quaint cottage, and inside her family dances about in and inside her family dances about in front of a fire while she's struggling outdoors. Perhaps she didn't do all of this work herself. Perhaps she could have asked for help but chose not to. Oh, perhaps she didn't have to do all this work herself. Perhaps she could have asked for help but chose not to. Maybe this could have waited another day and she could be enjoying time with her family instead. Okay, and that is similar to, I like that idea. Like she's holding herself apart from the party. How often do we do that kind of thing where we somehow believe it's all up to us? That's one of the primal prisons that Stephen Crone talks about. How much, like, how often do we think that we've got to do everything by ourselves while everyone else is having fun because we don't give ourselves permission to have fun, or we don't give ourselves permission to be with people? We have to be always going and doing, or perhaps okay, so I'm rewatching This Is Us now. I love that show. And there is one part, I'm not to it yet, but there's a part where Sterling K. Brown's character Randall, he thinks everything's up to him, and he'll say things like, at one point he says, this family would be a mess if it wasn't for me. Like I'm the only one holding this together. So sometimes we have a little part inside of us that thinks that we have to do everything ourselves, that it's all up to us, that the whole weight of our family rests on us. And sometimes it can really like the evidence around you can really show you that. And that's the thing too, like that Peter Crone will talk about, like, yes, we might have this may be a false belief or something that's untrue, but our world, because our world sort of we create our world because we create it through our perceptions. So when your world is showing you that, when you have evidence, like you think that things are all up to you. I mean, from her perspective, she's like, yeah, we do need this wood, or if we're gonna die. If I don't collect this wood so we can have fire, we're gonna freeze to death. So I've gotta do it. But and so the evidence will keep collecting around what you believe because again, your world is created by your own perceptions of the world. So she keeps believing it's all up to her and she's got to do everything herself. Now, is that unequivocally true? Do we have to do everything ourselves? Do we have to hold up the entire world ourselves? No. Even when we're a single parent, there were lots of times I did need to ask for help from people, from places, and I knew I couldn't do it myself. And so I had to ask people for, I had to ask people for help and I did receive a lot of the help that I needed. But even then, it was still it was a burden, but we still have the ability to choose. A lot of if we so there's this great video that Peter Crone, and I'll put a link to it in the description. In fact, let me write a note on that right now so I don't forget. It's Peter Crone headache girl. There's a girl that has headaches. It's a long episode, but it's really worth watching. It was very eye-opening for me. And he talks about this very thing. The woman is a single mom, and one of her beliefs is that it's all up to her. Like she has to take care of everything. And the truth, he helps her to see that that's not unequivocally true. And if it becomes not true, that it's not all up to you. And then you start having that perception of the world. Then you start to create the world around that perception. And then suddenly everything becomes lighter and more free. And when you can do that, then you can pick and choose the things that you do want to take on. Like I do want to take my kid to school every morning. And yeah, uh I'm doing it because I adore my child and I want them to grow into a capable adult. So I want to take them to school in the morning. And then suddenly I love my children so I want to take care of them. And then it's no longer a burden like the whole world is on my shoulders. Instead it's something very different. Okay. Next one. So roots. 8 of Winter Pentacles. We'll get my little guidebook out and we'll go to the Pentacles. Oh, this is just joyful. I just love this. We find a maiden making candles inside her barn. Candle making. Oh, okay. Candle making books and her plethora of notes are scattered about her crafting table. Ooh, cozy. Along with the tools of her craft. She's been at this for hours today, as well as the day before and the day before that. She's meticulously working towards mastering this skill with the hopes of one day becoming a full-time candle maker, a chandler. Look closely out of the window and see her home across the grass. What? Where? Hmm. Where's the window? Okay, I don't know. For now, she's put all of her efforts into this endeavor, even when it means sacrificing some of her personal time. Interesting. Okay. The 8 of Winter Pentacles represents someone who is beginning their journey towards becoming a master. The energy manifested through this card isn't quick or exciting, but dedicated, patient, and methodical. This is the burning of the midnight oil card, or the grunt work behind the grand show. It's moments like these when true artisans are born, when you acknowledge that innate talent, burning desire, or belief in oneself aren't quite enough. To truly excel, you must be willing to step into the role of student, focusing on learning all you can to succeed. This card appears in a reading when further skills, resources, or information are required. You've been able to get by with what you have, but if you want to evolve or move forward, when you'll need to invest more time or effort. But if you want to evolve or move forward, then you'll need to invest more time and effort. Even naturally talented people need to work on their craft to reach a level of level of excellence. Just like the maiden sacrificing some of her personal time to advance her business, you are being asked to make necessary changes or sacrifices in pursuit of your goal. Hard, consistent work is required. You may need to repeat a task hundreds of times, train when you're tired, or spend hours studying. You also need to accept that you probably won't get it right at first. You'll have to learn how to be comfortable with failing and develop the skill of being able to keep going despite setbacks. If you've been working consistently towards a goal, receiving this card is a very strong sign to keep up the good work, as your efforts will pay off sooner than you think. Okay, I love that. I'm still obsessed. I'm still caught up on this idea that there's a window in here that she's looking out. Okay, I don't see a window, but how amazing that it's I love that they're showing her working hard on something where I'm like, "Oh, I could spend hours learning how to do that. That would be so fun." So just because something brings you joy or you really want to learn about it, just because you would have to work hard on that doesn't mean that it's the wrong thing. Like she's she's probably enjoying things. She's probably not like, "Oh, I've got to learn all this stuff in order to become this master at it." Like with the thing that she's chosen, at least for me, it looks like it would be so interesting and cool to learn about. But let that be your guide as far as like what would you love learning about? Like what would be so cool and wouldn't feel like a chore? Then that indicates something of the direction you could be going rather than if the thing that you're learning about, if the thing that you think that you want to be doing requires a lot of busy work and grunt work to do it, and that's not bringing you joy, if the process of learning it is also not bringing you joy, it might be an indication that it might not be the practice for you. I will say sometimes this comes up a lot, especially for writers. There's something about writing. And I don't know if it's because we all have like this burden that we're carrying from other people from school or something like that, where a teacher told us we were crap at writing, or if it's, I don't know if it's that, or if it's just sometimes it does really feel like you're creating something out of thin air, and that can be a challenge. I'm not quite sure, but sometimes it comes up like if you're learning how to write and it doesn't always feel delicious, like you're learning to melt wax and you're, making cool shapes and practicing what you know. Sometimes writing can be a little different. And so a lot of writers will ask themselves, is this even what I want to do? Because I don't feel like writing all the time. And so So that being said, when I said if the process of learning doesn't bring you joy, then maybe it's not the right thing for you. I do think that there are some exceptions because writing and there are other certain pursuits that are so ethereal, it doesn't or so ethereal or so factual based and such that it may not always feel like a joy and a pleasure to do the things to be along that road, which is the in the process of becoming, a great writer, for example, or a great doctor. I don't think medical school or, all those late hours, there are certain things that are a prescribed path that may not feel like so joyous all the time to be learning. So keep what I'm saying in balance, of course. And next steps. So let's remember what our question is and remember to interpret these how you will according to this question that you may have. So what part of my story is ready to be rewritten or reclaimed? And only you know what your story is and what you'd like to reclaim. What kind of beliefs do you want instead? What beliefs can you put down? What beliefs did you inherit from somebody before you or from your parts that won't let go of something that they were using to try to protect you when you were 5 years old? What beliefs from back then can you let go of that can now make room for new beliefs? And what can you reclaim for now? For next steps, the 3 of Winter Swords. Now, I often look at swords as a writing suit because I am a writer and I look at it, the pen is mightier than the sword. So and I have a deck that actually, for their swords, it's always pens. And for this, I actually don't know this particular card very well. I don't pull it very often. So 3 of Winter Swords. Let's take a look at that together in here. That just reminded me of my mom. She always cleared her throat like that when she was reading a story to me. Okay. Here we find a maiden standing by a shallow lake, clearly in distress. She's crying out in the middle of a somewhat calm winter storm with gentle wind whipping around her. Only in her reflection do we see lightning bolts strike her heart, suggesting the event has occurred, but she's still dwelling on the pain instead of healing and moving on. In part, somewhat deep down, she knows she could have changed course, but she has chosen not to. Perhaps some of her pain is her unwillingness to accept her role in the situation, her reluctance to see the truth with the ace and 2 of Winter Swords has created some of these circumstances leading to what she's now feeling. Okay. Now I need 2 hands for just a second. The 3 of Winter Swords is one of the most feared cards in the tarot as it represents pain, sorrow, betrayal, and staggering disappointment. That's what I love about these cards, though, because they're so beautiful and they're just an invitation to see things in a beautiful way, in a way of learning and insight and reflection and transmutation in a way that the other cards just kind of look, sometimes they can just look depressing and distressful. But these seasons of the witch almost always cast a light on something that might normally be perceived as negative, and it invites you to look at it in a positive way. So I love that about this. It also represents the deep impact your heart can have on your mind, symbolizing the desire to relive an event again and again and wonder what you could have done differently or how you could have been better prepared. It's said that your mind can't tell the difference between reality and visualization. And perhaps mentally reliving a situation with slightly different results can feel like a sense of relief, even for a short time. Thus, your spirit draws this card to remind you that there is a real pathway forward. 3s represent growth, and here the heartbreak is a catalyst for change. This pain will ebb, and with time, your heart will heal. Heartbreak brings breakthroughs, and soon the lessons of your experience will become clear. For now, the advice is to let yourself experience this emotional release in full. Like you have to feel the pain in order to release it. That's one of the things about internal family systems, which I love, is you get this opportunity to sit with this little part. And sometimes I've done this work and I'll meet with the part and I basically visualize her sitting on my lap, this little part, and we just cry for a while. And I just feel the pain with her for a while. Like, I don't dismiss her pain like, "Oh, you're just little, you don't know." We just sit together and we feel that pain together. For now, the advice is to let yourself experience the emotional I said it better the first time. For n Let's try a third time. For now, the advice is to let yourself experience this emotional release in full. With each purge, whether that's crying, screaming, or sitting in sadness, you allow the suffering to move through you and you can move on, cleansing yourself a little more each time. So, I I really love that. And the sword seemed to be represented in here by a bolt of lightning, which is really cool. I love this. I love that interpretation. Who wouldn't? It's so beautiful. Ah. And okay, so I think these three work really well together. So we have our present moment, an invitation to let go of beliefs that aren't working for us. And then another invitation to take a look at the roots and see perhaps perhaps you have been working on something. Perhaps you've been doing a lot of inner work and you've been doing practicing for a long time. Maybe, for you, if you receive this right now, maybe you're not necessarily feeling that. Maybe it's a reminder that you do need to keep working on something. Maybe some more inner work. And then finally, these next steps show us that as we do the work and as we let go of these burdens, perhaps the message is to not rush through letting go of these old beliefs that aren't serving us anymore. But perhaps in order to reclaim them, we have to sit with and feel the emotions of those negative beliefs or those beliefs that were holding us back. Feel and sit with the reason why we have those beliefs in the first place and honor the younger version of ourselves who went through something difficult. Sit with that person. Sit with sit with her, be with her, cradle her as you would, like I said, the best, you know, as if you were the best version, the best mom you could imagine or the best aunt you could imagine, and sit with that little version of you and be with her and feel that pain together so that you can release it. Don't rush it. And then once you do that, then you can release it. That is our reading for today. I hope that it struck a chord with you. And I hope that you will get some insights from that you wouldn't have necessarily gotten if you hadn't looked at this and hadn't tuned it in with us today. I'm going to put the links down in the description below to this particular tarot deck and also that video with Peter Crone. And I just hope you have a wonderful day. And if this finds you years from now, it still applies. Just, everything's now. So if you find this and it resonates with you, then I'm so glad that I could be a part of that for you. I hope you have a wonderful afternoon and we will talk tomorrow.